Have you ever run your fingers over an ancient artifact, tracing the grooves of a symbol carved centuries ago, and wondered what story it was trying to tell? These patterns, whether etched into temple walls, woven into textiles, or stamped onto coins, aren't just decoration. They're a silent language, a code left behind by civilizations long gone, waiting for us to crack it. Today, we're stepping into the shoes of history's detectives, unraveling the hidden meanings behind ancient motifs. These designs are more than just art. They're windows into the minds of our ancestors, revealing their fears, their dreams, and their understanding of the universe. Take a moment to picture the spiral of a Celtic knot, endlessly looping with no beginning or end. To the people who created it, this wasn't just a pretty design, it symbolized eternity, the cyclical nature of life, and the interconnectedness of all things. Or consider the lotus flower in Egyptian art, rising pristine from muddy waters. It wasn't merely a plant, it represented rebirth, purity, and the sun's journey across the sky. These motifs were a way to communicate ideas too profound for words, passed down through generations like a secret handshake across time. What's truly fascinating is how these ancient symbols still resonate with us today. The same geometric patterns found in Mesopotamian ziggurats appear in modern architecture. The mandalas of Hindu and Buddhist traditions mirror the fractals we now study in mathematics. It's as if our ancestors left behind a map, not just of their world, but of something deeper, a shared human experience that transcends centuries. So, as we dive into the stories behind these motifs, keep an open mind. Because what you're about to discover isn't just history, it's a reflection of who we were, who we are, and perhaps who we're still becoming. It's almost uncanny how the same symbols emerge across continents, among cultures that never met. The Ouroboros, that serpent devouring its own tail, isn't just an Egyptian curiosity. You'll find it in Norse mythology, coiled around the world tree Yggdrasil, and in Greek alchemy, whispering secrets of infinity. But how could civilizations separated by oceans and millennia arrive at nearly identical imagery? The answer might lie in the shared rhythms of human existence. Think about it. Every culture watches the sun rise and fall, plants seeds and harvests crops, witnesses life emerge and fade. These universal experiences sculpted our ancestors' understanding of time, not as a straight line, but as a circle, endless, returning, inevitable. The same pattern repeats with the Tree of Life motif. From the Mesopotamian sacred groves to the Celtic Cran Bethad, trees stretch their roots into folklore worldwide. Why? Because they embody something primal, connection. Their branches reach for the heavens, their roots dig into the underworld, and their trunks anchor our earthly realm. It's no accident that so many myths describe humanity springing from trees or gods whispering through their leaves. These aren't just pretty stories, they're reflections of a shared awe for nature's cycles, coded into symbols that bypassed language barriers entirely. Even celestial patterns became a common vocabulary. The spiral, carved into Neolithic stone tombs and painted on Pueblo pottery, mirrors the whirl of galaxies and the curl of fern fronds. Ancient astronomers in Babylon and Mayan priests tracking Venus both saw the same night sky, and their symbols, like the star within a circle, echo each other across time. Could it be that these motifs are more than cultural coincidence? Some scholars suggest they point to an innate human tendency to find order in chaos, to seek familiar shapes in the vast unknown. Whether etched onto a clay tablet or woven into a tapestry, these symbols were humanity's first attempt to say, "I see the pattern, I understand." What's remarkable is how these ancient designs still speak to us. Modern psychology recognizes mandalas as tools for focus and meditation. echoing their sacred use in Tibetan monasteries centuries ago. Architects today borrow the fractal precision of Islamic geometric patterns, first perfected in medieval mosques. It's as if these symbols tap into something embedded deep within us, a visual language older than words, one that still stirs recognition in our bones. So the next time you doodle a spiral absent-mindedly or feel drawn to a particular emblem, ask yourself, are you responding to something much older, much wiser than your own time? The spiral isn't just a shape, it's a story, one that winds its way through time and across cultures with astonishing persistence. Picture this, a stone tool inscribing a coiled pattern into the walls of a Neolithic tomb in Ireland, a priest in ancient Mexico painting the same twist onto temple murals, a Maori artisan carving the koru into sacred pendants. Separated by thousands of miles and years, these people never met, yet they all reached for the spiral to express something fundamental about existence. Why? Because the spiral is written into the world itself. Look at a hurricane from above, the curl of a fiddlehead fern, the whirl of a galaxy. These aren't just accidents of nature. To our ancestors, they were clues, hints at a deeper order. Take the Maori koru, for example, shaped like a fern frond unfurling. It's more than a symbol of growth, it's a meditation on how life unfolds. The tight coil at its center represents potential, the moment before creation, while the expanding curves speak to the journey outward, the way life spirals into being. This wasn't just art, it was philosophy carved into wood, a reminder that every ending carries the seed of a new beginning, and it's not alone. The Triskelion, that triple spiral found in Celtic ruins, echoes the same idea. With its three arms spinning outward, it mirrors the cycles of life, death, and rebirth. The same rhythm seen in the seasons, the moon's phases, even the breath in our lungs. But here's where it gets even more intriguing. The spiral doesn't just mirror nature, it maps the sacred. In Mesoamerica, the pyramid of Kukulkan at Chichen Itza isn't just a staircase to the sky. During the equinox, shadows slither down its steps like a serpent's spine, a deliberate spiral of light and stone meant to connect Earth to the cosmos. The builders weren't just architects, they were choreographers of celestial movement, using the spiral to tether human life to the dance of the stars. Similarly, in Hindu tradition, the spiral of the Kundalini rises through the body, a coiled energy that, when awakened, unlocks higher consciousness. It's as if the spiral isn't just a symbol but a living pathway, one that links the physical and the divine. What's truly humbling is how this ancient motif still resonates today. Modern scientists trace the spiral in DNA's double helix, the very blueprint of life. Artists like Van Gogh harnessed its power in Starry Night, swirling the heavens into a cosmic whirlpool. Even our bodies follow its logic. The cochlea in our ears, the walls of our fingerprints. The spiral isn't just a relic of the past, it's a bridge, whispering that the way we see the world isn't so different from how a Neolithic sculptor or a Mayan priest once did. So the next time you see a spiral, whether in a gallery, a garden, or the night sky, pause for a moment. You're not just looking at a shape, you're glimpsing a language older than words, one that still speaks to the deepest parts of who we are. The labyrinth is more than a maze, it's a mirror reflecting humanity's oldest quest for meaning. Unlike the bewildering twists of a puzzle designed to trap, the labyrinth offers a single, winding path leading inexorably inward. Take the iconic example at Chartres Cathedral, laid into the stone floor in the 13th century. Pilgrims would walk its 11 concentric circles on their knees, not to lose themselves, but to find something deeper. Each turn was a prayer, each loop a step closer to revelation. This wasn't just architecture, it was a map of the human soul, a physical journey standing in for the spiritual one we all undertake. But why this shape? Why did cultures from ancient Crete to the Hopi people of North America converge on the labyrinth as a sacred symbol? The answer might lie in its deceptive simplicity. At first glance, the path seems chaotic, but follow it, and you discover an elegant order, a metaphor for life itself. The Greek myth of the Minotaur, hidden at the heart of the Cretan labyrinth, wasn't just a monster story. It was an allegory for facing our darkest fears, our inner demons, and emerging transformed. The Hopi, meanwhile, saw the labyrinth as a symbol of emergence, tracing their ancestors' journey from the underworld into the present. Different cultures, same insight. The path to wisdom isn't straight. It twists, doubles back, and demands patience. What's striking is how the labyrinth bridges the sacred and the everyday. Medieval Christians walked cathedral labyrinths when they couldn't reach Jerusalem, turning stone floors into holy land. Native American medicine wheels, with their concentric rings, served as spiritual compasses, guiding seekers toward balance. Even today, labyrinths are etched into hospital gardens and public parks, offering quiet spaces for reflection amid chaos. The design hasn't lost its power because it speaks to a universal truth. Life's journey isn't about speed or shortcuts. It's about the act of moving forward, even when the path circles back on itself. Perhaps the labyrinth's greatest lesson is this: the center isn't a destination, but a revelation. Walk one slowly, and you'll notice something extraordinary. The same path that leads you in also leads you out. There's no dead end, no final trap, just the understanding that every step, even the seemingly backward ones, is part of the whole. In a world obsessed with efficiency and straight lines, the labyrinth reminds us that wisdom often comes from the long way around. So next time you see one, whether in an ancient myth or a modern meditation garden, consider walking its path. You might not find a minotaur, but you could discover something far more profound yourself. The tree of life isn't just a symbol, it's a living bridge between worlds, stretching its roots into the soil of nearly every ancient culture. Picture Yggdrasil, the immense ash tree of Norse mythology, its branches cradling the 9 realms while a dragon gnaws at its roots. Now shift your gaze to Mesopotamia, where the Hulappu tree stood in the sacred garden of the gods, its trunk sheltering the serpent, the lion, and the storm bird. Separated by continents and centuries, these cultures never exchanged stories, yet they both saw the universe as a tree, its roots drinking from the waters of chaos, its branches holding up the sky. Why? Because the tree is the perfect metaphor for existence itself. It grows toward the light while clinging to the earth, a living paradox of strength and surrender. This motif goes deeper than mythology. It's woven into humanity's earliest spiritual frameworks as the axis mundi, the world's spine. For the ancient Maya, the ceiba tree pierced through layers of the underworld before blossoming in the realm of the gods. Siberian shamans climbed birch trees in ritual, believing their trunks were ladders to the spirit world. Even the biblical tree of knowledge standing at Eden's heart wasn't just a plot device. It embodied a profound truth that wisdom and suffering grow from the same root. What's startling is how these traditions, though culturally distinct, all recognize the tree as a conduit, a way to navigate the invisible layers of reality. The symbolism evolves beautifully in Kabbalah's Tree of Life, where its 10 Sephiroth aren't just branches but vessels of divine energy, mapping the journey from the unknowable to the material world. Compare this to the Bodhi tree, where Buddha attained enlightenment not by escaping the world, but by sitting so still that roots and sky became one. Here, the tree isn't just a connector, it's a teacher. Its rings whisper patience, its leaves model impermanence, and isn't it revealing that modern science echoes this ancient wisdom? A forest's mycorrhizal network, often called the Wood Wide Web, mirrors the Kabbalistic tree's interconnected spheres, proving that beneath the surface, everything communicates. Perhaps the tree of life endures because it's both map and mirror. Its roots anchor us to our ancestors, its branches invite us to reach beyond ourselves, and its cyclical shedding and regrowth remind us that decay feeds renewal. When a Lithuanian grandmother plants an oak at a grandchild's birth, or a Japanese family ties wishes to a sacred cedar, they're participating in a ritual older than writing. The tree doesn't just symbolize life, it invites us to grow alongside it, to become part of its story. So the next time you stand beneath a towering oak or a gnarled olive tree, remember, you're not just looking at a plant. You're witnessing an ancient symbol that still breathes, still teaches, and still binds heaven to earth. The mandala is more than a beautiful pattern. It's a cosmic blueprint, a sacred geometry that maps both the vastness of the universe and the depths of the human spirit. Picture a Tibetan monk crouched for days over a table of vibrantly colored sand, painstakingly arranging each grain into intricate concentric circles, squares, and lotus petals. This isn't just art, it's a meditation in motion, a temporary universe built grain by grain only to be swept away in an instant. That act of creation and dissolution holds a profound lesson, that beauty and meaning aren't found in permanence but in the act of paying attention. What's remarkable is how this same motif emerges in traditions worlds apart. The Navajo people's dry paintings, used in healing ceremonies, mirror the structure of Buddhist mandala's 4 gates, a central axis, and radiating symmetry. Hindu yantras, etched onto metal or paper, use geometric precision to channel divine energy. Even the rose windows of Gothic cathedrals, though filtered through a different faith, echo the mandala's promise that chaos can be ordered, that the infinite can be held in a circle of stone and glass. The shared language isn't coincidence. It's a recognition that the human mind, when seeking the sacred, instinctively turns to symmetry and center. Science now offers a fascinating parallel. Look at a cross-section of the human eye's retina, the branching of neurons in the brain, or the spiral of a galaxy. They all resonate with the mandala's structure. Carl Jung, the psychologist, saw mandalas as archetypes of wholeness, appearing in dreams during times of personal transformation. His patients, unaware of Eastern traditions, would spontaneously sketch circular designs when grappling with life's fractures. This suggests the mandala isn't just a cultural artifact. It's a neurological reflex, a way the mind reassembles itself when faced with dissonance. Perhaps the mandala's greatest power lies in its duality. It's both a map and a mirror, a guide to the cosmos and a reflection of our inner landscape. When a Buddhist practitioner visualizes a mandala during meditation, they aren't just contemplating abstract beauty. They're traversing realms, moving from the outer rings of earthly distraction to the luminous center of enlightenment. The same principle applies to a Navajo healer tracing a sand painting beneath a patient's feet, aligning body and spirit with the harmonies of the universe. Destruction, then, isn't an end but a completion, a reminder that all forms dissolve back into the formless, only to rise again. In a world obsessed with speed and accumulation, the mandala whispers a counterpoint. Its meticulous construction demands slowness. Its destruction celebrates release. Whether rendered in sand, ink, or stained glass, it invites us to pause, to breathe, and to remember that we, too, are both fleeting and eternal, a single point in the vast design, yet containing the whole. The Sunwheel spins through history like a golden thread, connecting cultures that saw in its rays the very pulse of existence. Carved into Bronze Age stones, etched onto Viking shields, and woven into Hindu temple art, this simple circle with radiating spokes wasn't just a depiction of the sun, it was a coded manifesto of how the universe works. Imagine standing at Newgrange in Ireland 5,000 years ago, watching the winter solstice sunlight pierce the tomb's dark passage, illuminating spirals that suddenly glow like miniature suns. To those ancient observers, this wasn't mere astronomy. It was divinity made visible, proof that light could conquer the deepest dark. What's striking is how universally the sunwheel symbolized not just light, but order. The Zia people of New Mexico painted their sun symbol with 4 radiating lines representing the cardinal directions, the seasons, and the stages of life, a reminder that the sun governs time itself. In Hindu tradition, the swastika, from the Sanskrit svastika, meaning well-being, mirrored the sun's path across the sky, its bent arms suggesting eternal motion. Before its tragic appropriation in the 20th century, this symbol adorned Navajo blankets and Greek pottery as an emblem of prosperity and cyclical renewal. The sunwheel's message was clear: life doesn't move in straight lines, but in sacred circles, always returning, always renewing. The sun's daily death and rebirth made it the ultimate metaphor for resilience. Egyptian pharaohs wore the anchor cross topped with a sun wheel as a key to eternal life, while Celtic kings modeled their talks after solar halos, claiming the sun's invincibility. Even the chariot of the Hindu god Surya, pulled by 7 horses, wasn't just a mythic vehicle. Those horses represented the 7 colors of sunlight and the 7 days of the week, a poetic equation of celestial mechanics and human rhythm. Ancient societies didn't merely worship the sun, they studied it, aligning their cities, harvests, and rituals to its dependable cadence. Perhaps the sunwheel's greatest legacy is its lesson in balance. The Aztec sun stone, often mislabeled a calendar, is actually a cosmic map. Its central face is to Natia, the sun god, demanding sacrificial nourishment to keep moving. Dark symbolism to modern eyes, but to the Aztecs, it reflected a profound truth. Light requires energy, creation demands effort. Similarly, the Baltic solar goddess Sol was said to weep amber tears at night, a poetic acknowledgement that even divinity feels the weight of daily rebirth. These weren't primitive fantasies, they were sophisticated observations of nature's economy, reminding us that nothing vital comes without cost. Today, we've swapped sun worship for solar panels, but the old symbols still resonate. When modern pagans celebrate the solstice or yogis salute the sun at dawn, they're tapping into an ancient recognition that we're children of a star, our bodies threaded with sunlight converted into cells. The next time you squint at a sunrise or feel winter's gloom lift with spring, remember, you're experiencing what inspired every sun wheel ever drawn. Not just awe, but kinship with the fiery orb that taught humanity to mark time, to hope beyond darkness, and to see in its unwavering cycles a promise: no night lasts forever. The serpent coils through ancient myths like a riddle wrapped in scales, both feared and revered, a paradox in motion. In Aztec temples, Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent, wasn't just a god of wind and wisdom. His undulating form bridged earth and sky, embodying the tension between chaos and order. Meanwhile, halfway across the world, the Norse world serpent Jörmungandr circled the oceans, biting its own tail like an Ouroboros, a living symbol of the cycle of destruction and renewal. How did this creature, so often misunderstood today, become such a universal cipher for life's deepest contradictions? Look closer at the serpent's biology, and the symbolism clicks into place. Its shedding skin, a literal rebirth, made it the perfect emblem of transformation. The Egyptians saw this and crowned their pharaohs with the uraeus, a rearing cobra that spat fire against enemies while guarding the ruler's divine authority. Even its venom held duality, deadly as a weapon, yet in tiny doses the basis of antidotes. the Greek god Asclepius wielded a staff entwined with a serpent, a symbol still etched onto ambulances today, reminding us that healing and harm often spring from the same source. But the serpent's wisdom runs deeper than physical traits. In Hindu tradition, the Kundalini serpent sleeps coiled at the base of the spine, its potential energy mirroring the dormant creativity within us all. When awakened through yoga or meditation, it rises through 7 chakras like a ladder, transforming base instincts into enlightenment. Similarly, the Aboriginal rainbow serpent weaves through dreamtime stories, carving rivers into the land with its body, both creator and destroyer, giver of life and bringer of floods. These myths aren't just fantastical tales, they're profound observations about balance. The serpent doesn't choose between opposites, it embodies them, teaching that creation often requires dissolution. Even in the biblical Eden, the serpent's role is more nuanced than it seems. Yes, it tempts Eve with forbidden knowledge, but consider what that knowledge represents: self-awareness, the pain and beauty of becoming human. The serpent, often vilified, was the catalyst for consciousness itself. This duality echoes in West African Dahomey folklore, where the serpent-eyed Awedo is both a rainbow and a storm, a bringer of rain and chaos. From the Mayan vision serpent bridging the mortal and spirit worlds to the Chinese dragon serpent weaving through constellations, these stories share a startling truth: the serpent isn't just a creature. It's a mirror reflecting humanity's own tangled relationship with power, wisdom, and the unknown. What's mesmerizing is how this ancient symbol still rides through modern imagination. Medical Kajusius symbols, DNA's double helix, even the serpentine cues of traffic in a bustling city. The motif persists because it speaks to something elemental. The serpent doesn't just represent dualities, it dissolves the illusion that opposites are separate. Poison and medicine, chaos and order, death and rebirth, these aren't contradictions but 2 sides of the same shimmering scale. So the next time you encounter a serpent, whether in a myth, a museum, or the wild, don't just see a predator or a villain. See the oldest teacher we have, whispering that to truly live, we must embrace the whole coiled mess of existence: the light, the dark, and everything in between. The eye has always been more than an organ, it's a portal, a silent witness to the mysteries of existence. Consider the Eye of Horus, that iconic Egyptian symbol split into fractions representing the senses. To the ancients, it wasn't just a protective amulet, it was a mathematical cipher for wholeness, a promise that even what's broken can be restored. Sailors painted it on their boats, surgeons carved it into medical tools, and the dead wore it into the afterlife, believing it could stitch their souls back together under Ra's watchful gaze. But why this fixation on the eye? Because it's the only part of us that doesn't hide. Pupils dilate with desire, narrow with suspicion, windows to truths even words can't conceal. Shift eastward to the bindi, the crimson dot adorning Hindu foreheads. Far more than decoration, it marks the 3rd eye, the Ajna chakra, a vortex of intuition piercing through illusion. Yogis speak of it as a dormant lens. When awakened, it reveals the world as energy, patterns, and interconnected light. Tibetan Buddhist paintings depict the Buddha with eyes on his palms and soles, a poetic declaration that enlightenment means seeing without boundaries. Even the Cyclops of Greek myth, with its single glaring orb, isn't just a monster. It's a cautionary mirror. Tunnel vision, whether literal or metaphorical, distorts reality. Then there's the evil eye, that blue and white amulet dangling over doorways from Istanbul to Rio. Its prevalence hints at a primal anxiety, that envy, like a darting glance, can carry malice. In Turkey, mothers pin nazar bonkugu to infants. In Italy, elders spit 3 times to ward off its curse. This superstition transcends religion. Muslims, Christians, and Jews all adapted the symbol, proving that fear of the unseen gaze is older than dogma. But here's the twist: the evil eye's power isn't just in deflecting harm. It's a social equalizer, a silent reminder that unchecked desire can poison communities, a lesson woven into glass beads and whispered lullabies. Science now catches up to symbolism. Studies show humans can feel stares even from behind, our skin prickling under unseen attention, a vestige of when predators lurked in shadows. Artists leverage this instinct. Renaissance painters hid divine eyes in clouds, while modern surveillance cameras borrow the same omniscient aesthetic to compel honesty. The eye's duality endures. It guards like Horus, unveils like Shiva, and warns like the Nazar. Whether etched onto a tomb or tattooed onto skin, it whispers the same truth. To be seen is to exist, but to truly see, that's the path to power. The lotus doesn't just grow in water. It thrives in the thick of decay, pushing through murky depths to unfold its petals untouched by the filth below. This paradox is precisely why ancient minds revered it. In Hindu scriptures, the lotus cradles deities like Vishnu and Lakshmi, not despite its muddy origins, but because of them. Each petal, perfectly spaced in Fibonacci precision, whispers that chaos and order aren't opposites, they're collaborators. The flower's daily ritual, sinking into darkness at dusk, reborn at dawn, didn't just inspire Egyptian myths of resurrection. It became a living allegory for the human condition. Beauty forged through struggle, enlightenment rooted in suffering. Consider the blue lotus of the Nile, clutched in the hands of pharaohs as they crossed into the afterlife. To the Egyptians, its scent was the breath of the gods, its cyclical blooming proof that death was just a closed bud waiting for the right light. Meanwhile, half a world away, Buddhist monks meditated on lotus postures, not merely to mimic its shape, but to internalize its lesson that stillness and emergence can coexist. Even the lotus's anatomy held meaning. Its stem, hollow yet unbroken, symbolized the spiritual path, empty of ego, strong enough to reach the surface. The lotus's resilience made it a favorite motif for philosophers. Confucius praised it as the gentleman's flower, rising unstained from polluted waters, a metaphor for integrity in corrupt times. In Taoist art, a lone lotus bending in the wind taught the virtue of flexibility without fracture. And let's not overlook the sheer ingenuity of its design. The lotus leaf's self-cleaning surface, which repels dirt and water, inspired modern nanotechnology. Ancient artisans, unaware of microscopic structures, carved temple pillars with lotus capitals to evoke this same purity, proving that observation often outpaces explanation. What's mesmerizing is how the lotus bridges science and spirit. Its seeds can lie dormant for centuries in dry lake beds, only to sprout when rains return, a phenomenon that captivated geneticists and mystics alike. Tibetan mandalas imagine the universe blossoming from a cosmic lotus, while biologists marvel at the fractal patterns in its seed pod. This duality, sacred yet empirical, is why the lotus endures. It's not just a symbol of transcendence, it's a living laboratory, demonstrating that enlightenment isn't an escape from the world, but a deeper engagement with its messy, magnificent details. Today, the lotus still surfaces in unexpected places. Protesters in Myanmar paint it on banners as a sign of peaceful resistance, while neuroscientists study lotus meditation's effects on brainwaves. Architects borrow its geometry for solar panels, and poets liken personal growth to its unfurling petals. The lesson is timeless. Transformation doesn't require pristine conditions. Like the lotus, we're wired to rise not in spite of the mud, but because it gives us something to push against. So the next time you see a lotus, whether in a pond or a painting, remember, you're not just looking at a flower. You're witnessing nature's oldest rebellion, the proof that darkness, when met with patience, becomes the soil for light. The Meander slithers across pottery and palace walls like a river frozen in stone, a geometric whisper of eternity. That iconic Greek key pattern, with its right-angled turns folding back on themselves in perfect repetition, isn't just decorative flair. It's a visual mantra, a meditation on the unbroken thread of existence. Picture a 5th century BC Athenian artisan painting the Meander onto a vase, their brush tracing the same path their ancestors followed centuries earlier. To them, this wasn't mere ornamentation. It was a coded homage to the ceaseless flow of life, as predictable and perpetual as the Nile's floods or the seasons' turn. What's astonishing is how this motif wove itself into disparate cultures like a shared subconscious. The Chinese called it the thunder pattern, weaving it into jade carvings and temple eaves as a conduit of celestial energy. The Maori transformed it into the pakoti, a step design symbolizing the unbroken lineage of warriors. Even the Navajo incorporated it into textile borders, mirroring the sacred paths of prayer. How could civilizations with no contact arrive at nearly identical symbolism? The answer might lie in something primal, the human instinct to find order in nature's rhythms. Watch a serpent's undulating path, a stream's winding course, or even the spiral arms of a galaxy, and you'll see the Meander's blueprint. Ancient artisans weren't just copying shapes, they were distilling the universe's pulse into lines. Delve deeper, and the Meander reveals philosophical layers. In Greek thought, its endless loops mirrored the Ouroboros, the serpent eating its tail, representing time's cyclical nature. Roman mosaists laid it in villa floors as a reminder that fortunes rise and fall, but the thread of legacy continues. The pattern's mathematical precision fascinated Pythagoras, who saw in its ratios a harmony echoing the music of the spheres. This wasn't just art, it was metaphysics rendered in clay and stone, a testament to humanity's hunger to map the intangible. Modern science lends eerie validation. Fractal geometry shows how river deltas branch in meander-like sequences, while DNA's helical twists recall the motif's recursive elegance. Architects from Byzantium to Art Deco revived the pattern, sensing its power to suggest motion in stillness. Even today, when you walk a labyrinth or doodle zigzags during a phone call, you're channeling an ancient impulse to trace the invisible currents that bind past to present, end to beginning. The Meander doesn't just decorate, it invites us to follow its path, to trust that every turn, even the sharpest, is part of a larger, unbroken flow. The Kajusius, those twin serpents spiraling up a winged staff, wasn't just a medical symbol to the ancient Greeks. It was a living paradox, intertwining poison and remedy, death and rebirth, in a dance as old as life itself. But here's what stops modern scholars mid-breath. Unwound, those serpents mirror the double helix of DNA with uncanny precision. Coincidence? Maybe. But when you find the same motif coiled around Shiva's lingam in Hindu temples, or slithering through Mesoamerican carvings as feathered serpents, it's hard not to wonder, did ancient cultures glimpse the blueprint of existence long before microscopes revealed it? Take the Nagas of Hindu and Buddhist lore. These serpentine beings weren't just mythical water deities, they guarded subterranean wisdom, their twisting bodies mapping the Kundalini energy said to rise through the human spine. Yogic texts describe this energy as two intertwined channels, Ida and Pingala, twisting like molecular strands around the central sushumna. The parallels are startling. Modern genetics reveals how DNA's twin strands unzip to replicate life, while Kundalini teachings speak of energy unfurling to awaken consciousness. Both systems, separated by millennia, describe a coiled potential waiting to be unlocked. Then there's the Aztec Zoocotl, the fire serpent wielded by gods to reshape worlds. Its undulating form, carved into temple walls, doesn't just depict a mythical creature, it encodes a deeper understanding of cyclical creation. The Zoocotl's body segments echo the base pairs of a DNA strand, while its role in cosmic renewal mirrors how genetic material rebuilds organisms cell by cell. Even the staff of Asclepius, with its single serpent, finds eerie resonance in virology. Some scholars note that snake's DNA holds evolutionary secrets about virus resistance, as if the ancients intuited their biological significance. What's truly humbling is how these symbols transcend cultural boundaries. In West Africa, the rainbow serpent Damballa weaves through creation myths, his sinuous body shaping land and rivers like genetic code scripting an embryo. Norse legends tell of the Midgard serpent, so vast it encircles the earth, a metaphor, perhaps, for the DNA that binds all living things. These recurring motifs suggest something profound, that humanity's earliest scientists, lacking laboratories, turned to metaphor to describe truths they sensed but couldn't yet see. Today, we've mapped the human genome, yet the old symbols still whisper. The Kajusius hangs in hospitals, the Naga's guard temple gates, and double helixes adorn modern art. Maybe they endure not because they're archaic, but because they're archetypal, a visual language our ancestors used to describe what we now confirm with data. The next time you see a spiral staircase, a vine curling around a trellis, or even the strands of a twisted rope, pause. You're witnessing an ancient intuition about life's most essential shape, one that coils through time, connecting myth to molecule, serpent to soul. The horned god stands at the edge of the forest, his antlers branching like winter trees, neither holy man nor beast, but something older, wilder. Cernunnos, the Celtic lord of animals, sits cross-legged on the earth, a torque in one hand, a serpent in the other, embodying a truth that unsettled later eras. Divinity wears many faces, some furred and antlered. Across continents and millennia, this archetype emerges. Pashupati, the Hindu lord of beasts, seals from the Indus Valley show him surrounded by creatures, meditating in a posture eerily similar to Cernunnos. Even the Mesopotamian Enki, though not horned himself, was depicted with streams of fish flowing from his shoulders, a testament to his role as life-giver. These weren't primitive idols, they were mirrors held up to humanity's most intimate relationship, the bond between hunter and hunted, grower and grown. What's striking is how these deities refused simplistic labels. The horned god wasn't just a symbol of plenty, he was the teeth in the predator's jaw, the crack of the hunter's bow, the quiet decay of leaves returning to soil. His duality unsettled later monotheistic traditions, who often recast him as demonic. Think of the Christian Pan becoming the template for Satan, but peel back the fear, and you'll find a profound ecological wisdom. The Celts didn't just worship Cernunnos, they negotiated with him. Offerings were left in sacred groves, not to conquer nature, but to acknowledge their place within its web. The stag they revered was the same one they felled for food, a paradox modern minds struggle to grasp, but one that held the key to balance. The horns themselves are a masterclass in symbolism. Unlike rigid crowns, antlers shed and regrow, a living calendar of death and renewal. The Basque god Sugar, depicted as a serpent with ram's horns, coiled through storms and fertility rites, his very form a bridge between sky and soil. Even in Japan, the Shinto god Umizu Yume, no kami, though rarely depicted, was invoked with deer antlers in rituals to ensure abundant harvests. These weren't arbitrary choices. Antlers pulse with blood during rutting season, then bleach white in stillness, nature's own heartbeat made visible. Small wonder ancient artisans carved them into ceremonial cups, drinking from the essence of the wild. Today, we've largely lost this fluency with nature's language. The horned god's legacy lingers in folklore, Herne the Hunter haunting Windsor Forest, or the green man's leafy face peering from cathedral stone. But his deeper lesson endures, that true reverence isn't about domination or passive admiration, but reciprocity. When a modern gardener plants milkweed for monarchs or a hunter follows fair chase ethics, they're echoing that old pact, not taking without giving, not loving the wild without honoring its ferocity. The horns don't just crown a deity, they remind us that divinity doesn't always come in human form. Sometimes it wears fur, sheds its skin, and watches us with the unblinking eyes of the forest. The phoenix doesn't merely burn, it transforms, its flames licking away the old to make room for the new. Picture the Egyptian Benu bird perched on the sacred willow of Heliopolis, its crimson and gold plumage shimmering like the dawn. To the Nile's priests, this creature wasn't just a herald of the annual flood's life-giving silt. It was the soul of Osiris himself, reborn from his own ashes. Fast forward to Han Dynasty China, where the Feng Huang, often mistranslated as phoenix, soared as the yin to the dragon's yang, its 5-colored feathers embodying virtue, grace, and the unbreakable cycle of dynasties rising and falling. How did this single myth ignite across civilizations that never traded scrolls or shared skies? Because fire, death, and renewal are languages every culture speaks. The secret lies in the phoenix's paradox. It must combust to continue. Greek poets like Hesiod claimed it lived 500 years before building a nest of frankincense and myrrh, then lighting itself ablaze with a single clap of its wings. But here's what often gets overlooked: the new phoenix doesn't just hatch from the ashes. It carries the remnants of its former self in an egg of myrrh, a poignant detail suggesting that true renewal isn't erasure but evolution. This nuance resonates in alchemy's rubedo phase, where base metals die to become gold, and in the Hindu practice of Agnihotra, where fire rituals transmute offerings into spiritual nourishment. The phoenix's lesson, resilience, isn't about returning unchanged but rising refined. Consider how this myth mirrors nature's most primal cycles. The desert-adapted creosote bush sheds its leaves in drought, only to resurrect after rain, a botanical phoenix. Forest fires, long seen as purely destructive, are now understood to trigger lodgepole pine cones to release seeds, their serotinous casings melting open like wax in flame. Even human biology whispers the phoenix's truth. Our skin cells slough off every 27 days, our livers regenerate, our bones remodel. The ancients may not have known mitosis or epigenetics, but they recognized the pattern, that life insists on reinventing itself, even when the cost is surrender to the flames. What's astonishing is how the phoenix's symbolism adapts without losing its core. Early Christians adopted it as a metaphor for Christ's resurrection. Mosaics in Roman catacombs showing it beside anchors, the dual emblems of hope. In Japan, the ho-oh bird's cry harmonizes the 5 notes of the pentatonic scale, a celestial reminder that destruction can beget beauty. Even modern psychology leans on the motif. The concept of post-traumatic growth mirrors the phoenix's arc, suggesting that our deepest fractures can become the places where new light enters. So why does this myth still take flight in our collective imagination? Because it offers more than comfort, it demands participation. The phoenix doesn't promise a painless rebirth, it requires the courage to ignite. When a wildfire survivor plants saplings in scorched earth, or a refugee stitches new roots into foreign soil, they're living the phoenix's truth. Its wings don't just beat in myth, they pulse in every act of stubborn, luminous defiance, proof that sometimes to truly live we must first let go. The mask isn't just a disguise, it's a doorway, a sacred threshold where the wearer steps into the skin of gods, ancestors, or even their own hidden selves. Picture a dancer in a West African geled ceremony, their face obscured by a carved wooden visage topped with swirling motifs. In that moment, they aren't just a villager, they become the embodiment of ancestral wisdom, channeling voices from beyond the veil. Meanwhile, on the stages of ancient Greece, actors donned the exaggerated smiles of comedy masks or the hollow-eyed grimaces of tragedy, their features frozen in extremes that mirrored life's unflinching contrasts. How did these strips of wood, leather, and paint become such potent vessels for transformation? Because masks don't hide who we are, they reveal who we might become. Consider the Inuit shaman's wooden mask, painted with spirit animals and split down the middle, one side light, the other dark. This wasn't theater, it was a metaphysical tool, a way to navigate the blurred line between human and supernatural realms. The shaman didn't merely wear the mask, they surrendered to it, allowing its energy to flow through them like a river through a canyon. Similarly, in Japanese no theater, masks carved from cypress wood are so revered they're believed to house kami or spirits. When an actor dons the hauntingly neutral face of a no mask, subtle tilts of the head make expressions flicker between sorrow and joy, proving that stillness can speak louder than motion. These traditions share a startling insight. Masks aren't barriers, but bridges, conduits for truths too vast for ordinary faces to convey. What's fascinating is how masks mirror the duality of human nature. The Venetian botta, with its stark white face and hollow eyes, allowed nobles to mingle anonymously in crowds, their identities erased but their voices amplified. In Mexico's Dia de los Muertos, sugar skull masks celebrate mortality with vibrant colors, turning fear into festivity. Even the plague doctor's beaked mask, filled with herbs to ward off miasma, was both protection and performance, a grotesque spectacle that paradoxically offered comfort in its certainty. Each design whispers the same lesson. When we conceal one facet of ourselves, we unmask another. Modern psychology echoes this ancient wisdom. Carl Jung wrote of the persona, the social mask we all wear, shaped by expectations yet hinting at the shadow beneath. Tribal rituals understood this instinctively. Initiation rites often involved mask-making, forcing youths to confront their hidden strengths and fears. Today, we might swap carved wood for digital avatars or makeup filters, but the impulse remains unchanged, to explore identities beyond the confines of flesh and bone. Perhaps the mask's greatest power lies in its paradox. It shields the wearer while exposing universal truths. A Balinese barong mask roars with the chaos of unchecked desire, while a Kwakwakawakwa transformation mask unfolds like origami to reveal a human face within a raven's beak. These aren't just artifacts, they're mirrors held up to humanity's collective soul. So the next time you see a mask, whether in a museum, a festival, or even your own reflection, remember, you're not looking at a disguise. You're witnessing an ancient invitation to step beyond the self, if only for a moment, and dance in the spaces between who we are and who we dare to be. The handprint pressed into a cave wall 30,000 years ago isn't just art, it's a declaration. A voice from the deep past shouting, "I was here." These ochre-stained outlines, found from Argentina to Indonesia, aren't mere signatures. They're the first contracts between humanity and eternity. Some splay fingers wide, others clutch pigments in fists, but their message is universal. This hand-shaped tools kindled fires, held loved ones. Now it reaches across millennia to grasp ours. What's haunting is how little separates their gesture from a child pressing a paint-covered palm to paper today, proof that the urge to leave our mark is coded into our bones. Now fast forward to the Hamsa, that stylized hand amulet hanging over doorways from Marrakech to Jerusalem. Its fingers might clutch an eye or bloom like a lotus, but its purpose is timeless, to deflect harm while channeling blessing. Jews call it the hand of Miriam, Muslims the hand of Fatima, and in each tradition, it's more than superstition. It's a physical plea for protection, a wearable prayer. The irony is striking the same hand that once claimed ownership of a cave now stretches skyward, open and vulnerable, asking for grace. The hand's duality fascinates. In Hindu mudras, precise finger positions summon divine energy during meditation. The Vitaka gesture for teaching, the Abhaya for fearlessness. Buddhist statues forever freeze the Dharmachakra mudra, thumb and forefinger circling to spin the wheel of cosmic law. Contrast this with the Mesopotamian Ker symbol, a raised fist carved into boundary stones as a warning. Cross this line, and my hand becomes a weapon. From benediction to threat, creation to destruction, the hand mirrors our capacity for both tenderness and dominion. Perhaps no motif better captures human aspiration than the hand of God in medieval manuscripts, a single divine wrist emerging from clouds, fingers parted in the act of creation. It's an arresting image, the infinite distilled into something familiar, touchable. Yet indigenous cultures like the Chumash of California painted similar visions, spirits with hands radiating solar rays, their palms stamped onto ritual objects as conduits of power. Whether hovering over a Christian saint or a shaman's drum, the sacred hand reminds us that to craft, to bless, to destroy, these are the privileges and burdens of being human. Modern science adds a poignant layer. Surgeons speak of the healing hand, its precise movements mending what's broken. Robotics engineers strain to replicate the hand's 19,000 possible gestures, a testament to its evolutionary perfection. Even our language betrays its significance. We lend a hand, take matters into our own hands, know something like the back of our hand. The ancient motifs persist because they tap into something primal, the understanding that our hands are more than tools. They're bridges between past and future, self and other, earth and the divine. So the next time you absent-mindedly trace a pattern with your fingertips or feel the weight of another's hand in yours, remember, you're participating in a ritual as old as humanity itself, one silent press at a time. The knot doesn't just bind, it speaks. It's loops and walls whispering secrets of eternity in a language older than words. Take the Celtic knot, those hypnotic interlacings carved into standing stones and illuminated manuscripts. At first glance, they're decorative marvels, but look closer. There's no starting point, no final tuck. Each strand flows seamlessly into the next, a visual echo of the belief that life, death, and rebirth are threads in the same unbroken tapestry. To the Druids, these weren't just designs, they were maps of cosmic order, proof that every choice, every soul, was woven into the fabric of existence. Now trace your finger along the arabesques of an Islamic prayer rug or the stone lattice of a Mughal palace. Here, the knot takes on another dimension, infinity rendered in geometric perfection. Unlike the organic curls of Celtic work, these patterns follow mathematical precision, their repeating units symbolizing Allah's infinite nature, the trick. They're deliberately non-representational because in Islamic art, only the divine can create life. So artisans encoded transcendence in knotted vines and stars, crafting puzzles for the eye that lead the mind toward the eternal. Cross continents to China, where the panchang knot, a lucky symbol woven from a single red cord, adorns everything from temple doors to emperors' robes. Its 8 loops represent the Taoist Bagua, the fundamental forces shaping reality. But here's the twist, These knots were often gifts, tied by one pair of hands to adorn another's home or body. The act of giving transformed them into physical prayers, their unbroken lines carrying wishes for longevity, harmony, and unbreakable bonds. What's mesmerizing is how these traditions, though oceans apart, arrived at the same insight, that knots are metaphors made tangible. A sailor's rope secures a ship, a lover's knot seals a vow, a monk's prayer cord tallies mantras, each one a reminder that connections, whether earthly or divine, require intention to tighten and trust to hold. Modern physics even nods to this ancient wisdom. String theory suggests the universe's fabric might be woven from vibrating filaments, while quantum entanglement proves particles can be linked across vast distances. The old artisans didn't have equations, but they sensed the truth, that existence is a series of loops, some visible, some unseen, all pulling us closer to the heart of the mystery. So the next time you tie your shoelaces or untangle a necklace, pause. You're participating in a ritual as old as civilization itself, one that honors the most profound truth of all. Nothing stands alone, and every twist in the path is just another bend in the grand, unbroken knot. The dragon coils through myth like a living paradox, both tempest and teacher, terror and treasure. In China, the long lung soars through clouds with serpentine grace, its scales glistening with the promise of rain. Farmers prayed to it for fertile fields, emperors wore its likeness as a symbol of celestial mandate. Yet cross into medieval Europe and the dragon transforms, a fire-breathing menace guarding gold in mountain caves, its wings casting shadows over villages. How could one creature embody such opposing roles? The answer lies not in biology, but in the human psyche's dance with chaos. Eastern dragons reveal a cultural embrace of nature's untamed power. The Japanese Ryu didn't just control storms, it whispered secrets to scholars in dreams, its pearl of wisdom clutched in curled claws. Vietnamese legends tell of the Dragon King Lac Long Quan, who taught humans to cultivate rice and build dikes, chaos harnessed for survival. Contrast this with Beowulf's nemesis, the gold hoarding worm whose very breath scorched the earth. The West Dragon was a foe to slay, a metaphor for the wilderness needing conquest. Yet both versions share a core truth. Dragons embody forces too vast to ignore, whether worshipped or warred against. What's fascinating is how these myths mirror real-world relationships with the unpredictable. The Yangtze's floods, both destructive and life-giving, found their avatar in the lung's undulating form. Meanwhile, Europe's dragon-slaying saints like George with his lance mirrored the church's mission to tame pagan wildness. Even the dragon's anatomies held clues. Eastern dragons lacked wings, moving like rivers or mist, while Western ones sprouted bat-like appendages, echoing the predatory shadows of feudal castles. These weren't random designs, they were cultural Rorschach tests, revealing how societies viewed the uncontrollable. Modern science adds a tantalizing layer. Paleontologists suggest dragon myths may have sprung from dinosaur fossils, the towering skeletons of creatures like protoceratops found along the Silk Road, their beaked skulls mistaken for dragons' remains. But the deeper magic lies in how the symbol evolved. Today, the dragon thrives in quantum physics, Schrödinger's cat replaced by a dragon in some thought experiments, and corporate logos, think SpaceX's stylized dragon capsule. It's as if this ancient motif still breathes fire into our collective imagination, reminding us that chaos isn't just a threat, it's the crucible where wisdom is forged. Perhaps the dragon's greatest lesson is its refusal to be pinned down. In Mesoamerica, Quetzalcoatl the feathered serpent bridged earth and sky, while in Bhutan, thundered dragons adorn flags as guardians of sovereignty. Even J.R.R. Tolkien's Smaug, for all his greed, voiced uncomfortable truths about human folly. The dragon doesn't just guard treasure, it guards perspective. That progress requires both the storm and the seed, the flame and the phoenix that rises from it. So the next time you see a dragon, whether in a temple mural or a fantasy film, look beyond the scales. You're witnessing humanity's oldest conversation with the untamed, a dialogue as vital today as it was when the first myths took flight. The circle holds no edges, no corners, no beginning or end, just an unbroken line that has whispered the same secret for millennia. Everything returns. Picture the Neolithic builders of Stonehenge hauling bluestones 250 miles to arrange them in concentric rings, aligning the summer solstice sunrise with the heel stone. This wasn't just engineering, it was a hymn to the heavens, a stone echo of the sun's own path. Fast forward to a Zen monk in Kyoto, dipping her brush into ink and painting a single, fluid inso in one breath. The space inside the circle isn't empty, it's a mirror for the mind, a visual koan asking, where does the boundary between self and universe truly lie? What's astonishing is how this shape transcends function to become pure metaphor. The Oglala Lakota's sacred hoop, the Celtic torque, the halos hovering over Christian saints, each one frames the same truth: wholeness is holy. Even the mundane reveals it. A wedding ring's gold band isn't just jewelry, it's a portable altar, a vow made tangible. The circular dances of Sufi dervishes and Native American powwows don't just entertain, they embody the cosmic wheel turning with the seasons and the stars. The circle doesn't just represent eternity, it invites us to step inside and become part of its motion. Sacred architecture leans into this power, from the Pantheon's oculus, opening Rome to the sky's ever-changing face, to the rose windows of Gothic cathedrals fracturing light into kaleidoscopic parables, circles dissolve walls between earth and divine. Islamic mosaics avoid human forms but embrace infinite geometric patterns. Their interlaced circles are mathematical proof of Allah's boundless nature. Even Stone Age pit houses were dug in rounds, their curved walls defying harsh winds' practicality and reverence spun together like strands of the same rope. Science now nods to ancient intuition. Planets orbit, cells divide, and electrons whirl in shells, all tracing circular paths. The very concept of time, once imagined as linear, bends in Einstein's physics into something more like a Mobius strip. Meanwhile, modern psychology borrows from mandala therapy, using circular drawings to help trauma survivors reassemble fractured identities. It's as if the circle was never just a shape, but a scaffold, one that holds everything from atoms to galaxies, from grief to healing in its curve. Perhaps the circle's deepest magic lies in its democracy. Unlike pyramids or spires that point hierarchically upward, a circle has no top or bottom. Every seat at a round table holds equal weight. Every voice in a council ring carries the same gravity. When indigenous elders form a talking circle or activists link hands around threatened trees, they're reclaiming this primal geometry of belonging. Even children grasp it instinctively. The first shape we scribble, the first game we play, ring around the rosy, anyone. The circle doesn't just symbolize unity, it demands participation, proving that the simplest line can be the most profound teacher. So the next time you stir your coffee or trace a finger around the rim of a glass, pause. You're touching the oldest shape in the book, one that still spins, unbroken, through every layer of existence. The Crossroads wasn't just a meeting of dirt paths, it was a liminal space, a wrinkle in the world where choices crystallized into fate. Picture a traveler in ancient Greece pausing where three roads converged, piling stones into a herm, a crude altar to Hermes, the god who watched over wayfarers and thieves. These weren't just prayers for safe passage, They were acknowledgments that every decision rippled outward, branching into futures unseen. Meanwhile, in the flickering torchlight of Roman nights, offerings of honey and garlic were left at Crossroads for Hecate, the triple-faced goddess who held sway over magic and the moon's hidden phases. To place a meal, there wasn't superstition. It was diplomacy, a bargain struck with the divine forces that governed life's sharpest turns. What's haunting is how universally cultures marked these junctions as sacred. In West Africa, the Yoruba revered Eshu, the trickster who danced where paths crossed, his red and black hat signaling that every choice carried both opportunity and consequence. Celtic tales spoke of fairy paths intersecting in moonlit glens. Step wrong, and you might slip into the other world. Even the Chinese ghost money, burned at Crossroads, wasn't mere ritual. It was currency for ancestors navigating the afterlife's labyrinth. These traditions shared a profound insight. Crossroads weren't just physical waypoints but psychic thresholds, places where the veil between worlds wore thin. The symbolism ran deeper than mythology. Ancient surveyors from Mesopotamia to Mesoamerica aligned cities to cardinal directions, their grids echoing the crossroads geometry. The Aztec tonal Pohueli, a sacred calendar, was visualized as a cosmic crossroads where time cycles intersected. Norse rune casters threw carved staves onto crossed lines, reading destiny in their scatter. Each practice whispered the same truth. Life's pivotal moments aren't random, they're convergences, points where personal will brushes against the larger design. Modern psychology echoes this ancient intuition. The crossroads dream, where dreamers stand paralyzed between paths, remains one of the most universal nocturnal anxieties. Behavioral scientists study choice overload, that dizzying moment when options multiply like branching roads. Even our language betrays the motif's hold. We speak of forked paths, pivotal decisions, and standing at a crossroads, as if the physical and metaphorical are forever entwined. Perhaps the most poignant lesson lies in the artifacts left behind. Archaeologists find worn coins, broken blades, and tiny effigies buried at ancient crossroads, not trash, but deliberate deposits. A soldier's dagger thrust into the earth before battle, a mother's amulet tucked beneath a stone. These were silent conversations with the unseen, acknowledgments that every choice, even the most solitary, is made in the presence of something greater. Today, we might not leave offerings at street corners, but the impulse persists. The pause before signing a contract, the deep breath taken before a confession, the way we still instinctively hesitate where sidewalks meet. These are our modern hermstones, our silent nods to the old gods of the threshold. The crossroads never vanished. They simply took new forms, reminding us that every step forward is also a kind of pact with the unknown. The spider doesn't just spin silk, she weaves worlds into existence. Among the Dene people, Spider-Woman, or Nash Jai Azar, taught humans to weave on looms strung with sunlight and rain, her threads binding earth to sky. Meanwhile, in West Africa, Anansi the trickster spun stories into webs, each strand a lesson about cunning and survival. These weren't just creation myths, they were early theories of relativity, suggesting that everything, stars, stories, human lives, hung together in a vast, trembling network. Look closer at the web structure, and its symbolism clicks into place. The Greeks imagined the Moirai, three sisters who spun, measured, and cut the threads of fate, their loom humming with inevitability. Norse legends spoke of the Norns, etching destinies into Yggdrasil's roots with runes and spider silk. Even the Maya depicted Ixchel, the lunar goddess, as a weaver, her cosmic tapestry dictating the rise and fall of kings. The message was universal: pull one thread and the whole design trembles. Science now catches up to intuition. Ecologists map food webs, tracing how the loss of a single species cascades through ecosystems. Quantum physicists speak of entanglement, where particles mirror each other across light years, as if strung on invisible filaments. The internet, our modern web, mirrors Anansi's trickster spirit, connecting, deceiving, and revealing in equal measure. Maybe the ancients weren't spinning tales but observing patterns. That life thrives on connection, frays in isolation, and holds its shape through tension. What's haunting is how the web's fragility becomes its strength. A spider's silk, ounce for ounce, outperforms steel, yet it shimmers with impermanence, rebuilt each dawn. Indigenous Australian Dreamtime stories tell of the rainbow serpent weaving waterways, paths that flood and fade but never vanish. Even the Hindu concept of Indra's net, where jewels reflect each other infinitely, suggests a universe where every node contains the whole. The web doesn't promise permanence, it teaches resilience, that repair is as vital as creation. Today, we've traded spinning wheels for fiber optics, but the old metaphor holds. A missed call vibrates across time zones, a virus leaps continents in hours, a hashtag stitches strangers into movements. The web still whispers its ancient lesson: no thread is solitary, no act isolated. So the next time you brush aside a spider's work or trace a fingertip across a screen, remember, you're touching the oldest map we have, one that still trembles with every choice, every connection, every shared breath. The chariot doesn't just move, it ascends, its wheels turning the mundane into the celestial. Imagine the Vedic Surya, his golden chariot drawn by 7 fiery horses, racing across the sky to banish darkness. Each dawn wasn't just a sunrise, it was a victory parade, the sun god's wheels scattering night like shattered glass. Now picture the Norse Sol, her chariot pursued by the wolf skull, the tension between light and destruction made visceral in every hoofbeat. From the Roman Sol Invictus to the Greek Helios, cultures draped in mythologies as different as their landscapes all reached for the same image, a divine vehicle harnessed to untamed power, carrying light itself across the heavens. But why a chariot? Because its very mechanics control harness to wildness. Direction imposed on speed mirrored humanity's deepest yearning, to master chaos and rise above it. Look beyond solar myths, and the chariot's symbolism deepens. In Etruscan tombs, bronze chariots were buried with the elite, not as status symbols but as soul vehicles. The deceased wasn't just a corpse, they were a charioteer, reins in hand, ready to navigate the afterlife's treacherous turns. Hindu texts describe the body as a chariot, the soul as its driver, with the mind as reins and senses as horses, an allegory so precise it could be a mindfulness manual. Even Plato borrowed the metaphor, his Phaedrus depicting the soul as a chariot pulled by 2 winged steeds, one noble and one unruly, eternally straining toward enlightenment. The chariot wasn't just transport, it was alchemy, transforming the corporeal into the transcendent. What's striking is how this motif bridges war and worship. Egyptian pharaohs rode chariots into battle, their wheels inscribed with prayers to Ra, blurring the line between conqueror and sun priest. The Chinese chariot of state metaphor framed emperors as drivers steering civilization itself. Yet in Zoroastrian tradition, the chariot became ethical. The Parsis' sacred vultures, carrying souls skyward, were called the birds of the chariot. This duality, chariot as weapon and vessel, tool and talisman, reveals a universal truth. Ascension requires both force and grace. Modern echoes abound. The astronaut's capsule streaking through the void is a chariot in all but name. The electric current coursing through wires, early scientists called it the chariot of fire. Even our language preserves the archetype. We speak of chariots of the gods, chariots of fire, and chariots of destiny, as if the old myths still whisper in our technological lexicon. Perhaps the chariot endures because it's more than a relic, it's a mirror. Every time we harness energy, whether horsepower or hydrogen, we reenact the ancient dream, to hitch our lives to something greater and let it carry us beyond the horizon. So the next time you watch the sun rise or feel an engine roar to life, remember, you're witnessing the latest chapter in a story that began with a god, a whip, and a team of steeds charging into the dawn. The mountain doesn't just scrape the sky, it stitches earth to heaven. Its slopes threaded with the footsteps of gods and seekers alike. Picture the Sumerian ziggurats, those stepped pyramids rising from Mesopotamia's flat plains like stairways for the soul. Each tier wasn't just architectural, it was alchemical, turning mud bricks into metaphors. Climbing them, priests enacted the sacred marriage of earth and sky, their rituals echoing the primordial mound that first broke through cosmic waters in creation myths. Meanwhile, halfway across the world, Hindu sages mapped the universe onto Mount Meru's slopes, its golden peak home to Brahma, its roots anchored in the underworld, its axis spinning the constellations like a divine spindle. Even Greek Olympus, shrouded in cloud and rumor, wasn't merely a divine address. It was a mirror reflecting humanity's ache to ascend beyond mortal limits. What's striking is how these peaks became more than geography. They were cosmic compass needles orienting entire civilizations. The Aztecs built Tenochtitlan around the myth of Coatepec, where the serpent-skirted goddess Coatlicue gave birth to the war god Huitzilopochtli atop a sacred mountain. Tibetan Buddhists still circle Mount Kailash in pilgrimage, believing a single circuit erases a lifetime of sins. The Sua's Black Hills, or Pahasapa, weren't just land. They were the heart of the world, where every rock whispered with the pulse of Tunkashila, the Great Spirit. These traditions shared a revelation. Elevation wasn't just physical, it was existential. To climb was to shed the ordinary like a heavy cloak, step by step. The symbolism runs deeper than metaphor. Mountains are where air thins and boundaries blur. In the Andes, shamans still ascend Nevado Orsangate to commune with Epus, the spirit guardians of the peaks. Japanese Fujiko sects scale Mount Fuji not as hikers but as pilgrims, their white robes fluttering like prayers in the wind. Even the biblical Sinai, shrouded in smoke and thunder, became a furnace of revelation, Moses emerging with a face so radiant it demanded a veil. The pattern is universal. Altitude alters perception. Thin air sharpens vision, storms strip away pretense, and summits offer a vantage point where the world's fractures resolve into wholeness. Science now nods to ancient intuition. Biologists note how high-altitude exposure triggers hypoxia, inducible factors, proteins that, paradoxically, enhance resilience. Psychologists study peak experiences, those fleeting moments of transcendence often reported on mountaintops. Even the Earth's tectonic plates whisper the old truth: mountains aren't passive landmarks. They're alive, growing millimeter by millimeter as continents collide. The ancients sensed this dynamism, framing peaks not as static backdrops but as active participants in the sacred. Perhaps the mountain's greatest lesson is its duality. It's both sanctuary and challenge, a place where avalanches carve valleys even as wildflowers cling to crevices. The Inca's Epus demanded offerings of coca leaves and chicha, not as tribute but as reciprocity, a reminder that reverence requires giving, not just taking. Modern climbers scaling Everest's death zone or El Capitan's sheer face chase the same alchemy, the moment when effort dissolves into awe and the self slips into something larger. So the next time you glimpse a distant peak, whether in a painting, a photograph, or the horizon's jagged line, remember, you're not just seeing rock and snow. You're witnessing humanity's oldest altar, a place where the finite brushes the infinite, and every step upward is a silent vow to keep reaching. The veil doesn't just conceal, it trembles, a fragile boundary between what we know and what we dare to imagine. Picture the inner sanctum of an Egyptian temple, where priests moved behind linen curtains dyed with sacred hues, their chants muffled as if passing through layers of time. To lift Isis's veil wasn't just an act of devotion. It was an initiation, a silent agreement to bear the weight of divine secrets. Meanwhile, in ancient Greece, the Eleusinian mysteries draped initiates in veils before revealing the sacred Kykion, a moment so transformative that speaking of it afterward carried a death penalty. These weren't mere fabrics, they were portals, each fold a whispered promise that some truths must be approached obliquely, felt rather than seen. Consider the Jewish temple's parochet, that embroidered curtain shielding the Holy of Holies. Its intricate patterns weren't just decoration, they mapped the cosmos, a tapestry of pomegranates and cherubim encoding the unseeable. Only the high priest could pass through, and only once a year, his ankles tied with a rope in case the encounter proved fatal. The veil here wasn't just a divider, it was a mediator, softening the unbearable radiance of the divine into something approachable. Similarly, in Hindu temples, the antarpat, a cloth hung before deities, is drawn aside during puja, not to diminish the god's majesty but to frame it, like drawing back a curtain on the dawn. What's chilling is how often veils appear at life's irrevocable thresholds. Roman brides wore flame-colored veils to ward off vengeful spirits on their wedding day, while Victorian widows donned black crepe, their grief made visible. In Mexico's Day of the Dead, papel picado delicate paper veils flutter between graves and altars, their perforated patterns allowing souls to pass through like light through lace. Even the thin silk shroud covering a Muslim's body before burial carries echoes of the Kiswa, the black drape over the Kaaba, as if death were another pilgrimage to the sacred center. Modern physics offers an eerie parallel. Scientists speak of the veil of perception, the way our brains filter reality into manageable fragments. Quantum theory suggests particles flicker in and out of existence, as though slipping behind some cosmic curtain. It's as if the ancients, lacking equations, intuited this liminality, that every veil, whether silk or space-time, hints at dimensions just beyond our grasp. So the next time you push aside a beaded curtain or watch fog lift from a lake, pause. You're rehearsing humanity's oldest ritual, the reach for what lies shimmering just out of sight. The egg doesn't just cradle life, it contains the cosmos itself, a perfect shell holding infinite possibility. Picture the Finnish epic Kalevala, where the world begins as a solitary egg laid on the knee of Ilmater, the goddess of air. When it cracks, its yolk becomes the sun, its white the moon, and its scattered fragments the stars. Now shift your gaze to ancient Egypt, where the god Autumn emerges from the primordial waters atop the Benben stone, a pyramid-shaped egg, birthing himself into existence with nothing but his own will. Half a world away, Hindu scriptures describe the Hiranyagarbha, the golden womb floating in the void before splitting into heaven and earth. How did cultures with no contact all arrive at the same startling image? Because the egg isn't just a biological fact, it's the ultimate metaphor for beginnings fragile yet resilient, small yet infinite, ordinary yet miraculous. Consider the egg's architecture, that delicate shell, thin enough to shatter under a child's grip yet strong enough to protect life, mirrors the universe's own paradoxes, how something as fleeting as a human breath exists alongside galaxies spinning for eons. The Orphic mysteries of Greece took this further, teaching that the primordial egg was split by Chronos, time itself, its halves becoming the celestial dome and the earthly realm. Even the Chinese legend of Pangu shows him hatching from a cosmic egg, his body stretching to form the mountains and rivers as the shell fragments rise to become the sky. These myths share a profound insight. Creation isn't a linear event but a rupture, a breaking open that transforms potential into reality. What's mesmerizing is how the egg's symbolism transcends creation stories. In alchemy, the philosopher's egg was the sealed vessel where base metals transformed into gold, a microcosm of spiritual rebirth. Slavic folklore wove protective spells around Pysanky intricately decorated eggs, believing their geometric patterns could ward off chaos. Even today, the Fabergé eggs of Imperial Russia whisper of luxury and secrecy, their jeweled surfaces hiding miniature worlds within. The egg doesn't just symbolize life, it embodies the act of concealment and revelation, the way every ending carries the seed of a new beginning. Science now cracks open deeper layers. Biologists marvel at the egg's blastular stage, where a single cell divides into hundreds, each containing the same genetic blueprint, a living echo of the cosmic egg's unity in multiplicity. Astrophysicists speak of the universe's own egg-like curvature, its origins compressed into a singularity before the Big Bang's explosive unfurling. The parallels are uncanny. Both the cosmic and the microscopic hinge on the same principle that greatness often starts in silence, in spaces too small to see but vast enough to hold everything. Perhaps the egg's greatest lesson is its quiet insistence on cycles. The Ouroboros serpent swallowing its tail is mirrored in the hen's egg becoming a chick, which in time lays another egg. The Easter eggs hidden in spring grass aren't just playful, they're rooted in pagan celebrations of Ostara, where eggs symbolized winter's thaw and life's stubborn return. From the dyed red eggs of Greek Orthodox Easter said to represent Christ's tomb, to the tamago offerings at Shinto shrines, the egg remains humanity's oldest shorthand for hope. So the next time you hold an egg, whether cracking it into a bowl or turning it over in your palm, remember, you're touching a shape that has, for millennia, reminded us of the universe's most humbling truth. That inside the most unassuming vessels, beneath the thinnest barriers, there waits a world yet to be born. The shadow isn't just an absence of light, it's a presence, a silent companion trailing every step we take. Plato's cave allegory didn't just warn of illusions, it revealed how shadows can become prisons, how we might mistake the flickering outlines on stone for the full blaze of reality. But what if shadows aren't just obstacles to enlightenment? What if they're the very path to it? Ancient cultures seem to think so. In the Eleusinian mysteries, initiates faced a ritual called the Night of Shadows, where torchlight cast monstrous shapes on temple walls, forcing them to stare into the abyss of their own fears before emerging reborn. This wasn't about escaping darkness, it was about learning to see in it. Jung called this the shadow self, the part of us we bury beneath polished personas, our repressed desires, unacknowledged angers, the traits we disown yet still carry like hidden weights. Indigenous Amazonian shamans take apprentices deep into the jungle at night, not to avoid shadows but to converse with them. They believe every shadow contains an aya, a spirit mirror reflecting the soul's unvarnished truth. Similarly, the Navajo ch ejective iogonek acute iogonek dii shadow-like ghosts aren't just feared, they're teachers, revealing the unresolved wounds that haunt a person's steps. These traditions share a radical idea. Integration, not eradication, is the key to wholeness. Artists have long weaponized shadows to expose hidden realities. Caravaggio's paintings plunged saints into inkai blackness, their holiness emerging from the dark rather than resisting it. Japanese no theater uses maboroshi deliberate shadow play to make ghosts tangible, their flickering forms reminding audiences that the unseen shapes the scene. Even children's folklore, like Peter Pan's runaway shadow, whispers an unsettling truth. We're never fully ourselves until we reclaim what we've tried to leave behind. Modern psychology echoes this ancient wisdom. Exposure therapy treats phobias by gradually introducing patients to the very shadows they flee. Brain scans show that acknowledging repressed emotions literally rewires neural pathways, turning monsters into maps. The shadow, it seems, isn't the enemy, it's the unopened guidebook to our deepest strengths. So how do we step into this light? Not by banishing shadows, but by turning to face them, like the Kwakwaka'wakwa dancers of the Pacific Northwest, whose masks transform when tilted toward firelight, revealing hidden faces carved into the wood. Darkness isn't the opposite of understanding. It's the canvas on which illumination writes its most startling revelations. The next time your shadow stretches long at dusk, don't look away. That silhouette isn't just following you, it's leading you home. The key doesn't just open doors, it whispers promises of hidden realms, its teeth cut to fit locks both earthly and divine. Picture the ancient priestess of Hecate raising her bronze key under a crescent moon, its triple teeth mirroring the crossroads where her goddess ruled. This wasn't just a tool, it was a covenant granting access to secrets that could unravel fate itself. Meanwhile, along the Nile, the Ankh Egypt's key of life, dangled from the fingers of pharaohs, its looped head symbolizing the eternal breath awaiting beyond death's threshold. How did this humble instrument, forged to secure grain stores and chests, become humanity's go-to metaphor for revelation? Because every key carries a silent dare. What if the lock you've ignored holds the secret you've sought all along? Delve deeper and the key's duality emerges. In Roman households, the clavicula, a small iron key, was worn by matrons as a badge of authority, its possession signaling control over storerooms and family mysteries. Yet in the same era, Mithraic initiates underwent the key ceremony, where a golden key was pressed to their lips, symbolizing the unlocking of celestial wisdom. The pattern repeats in medieval grimoires, where Solomon's key wasn't just a legend but a blueprint, a geometric sigil said to command spirits when drawn at the right hour. The key didn't just represent power, it was power condensed into cold metal and precise geometry. What's fascinating is how often keys appear at the brink of transformation. Japanese shrine maidens still guard the kogi, a sacred key that opens the honden where the kami reside only during rituals, only for the purified. Dante's Divine Comedy describes St. Peter holding the keys to paradise, not as a reward but as a test. Could the soul's weight turn the tumblers of divine justice? Even Freud, that modern mythmaker, saw keys as subconscious symbols, the jagged metal representing everything from sexual awakening to the unshackling of repressed memories. The key's message transcends time. Initiation demands both a tool and the courage to use it. Modern science leans into the metaphor. Cryptographers speak of encryption keys, digital sequences that crack open vast vaults of information. Biologists describe enzyme active sites as molecular keys, their shapes perfectly fitted to jumpstart life's chemical reactions. The parallels are uncanny whether in silicon or cells. The principle holds, barriers exist to be breached by those with the right cipher. So the next time you turn a key in a lock, whether it's your front door or a forgotten diary, pause. You're participating in a ritual older than pyramids, one that honors the most human of truths, that every barrier, real or imagined, is an invitation to discover what lies waiting on the other side. The mirror doesn't just reflect, it reveals, its polished surface peeling back layers of illusion to expose truths too raw for daylight. Among the Aztecs, the Tezcatl mirror wasn't a vanity tool but a sacred instrument, crafted from obsidian to capture more than faces. Priests used these volcanic glass mirrors for telatial oni divination, rituals where smoke and candlelight transformed the surface into a rippling portal. Gazing into its depths, they didn't seek their own reflections. They sought visions of the future or glimpses of Tezcatlipoca, the smoking mirror god whose name meant he who sees in the dark. This deity's missing foot, replaced by a mirror in myth, whispered a profound lesson. True sight often requires sacrifice, and the most piercing visions come from staring into the void. Meanwhile, in Han Dynasty China, bronze mirrors called giant bore inscriptions like, "May you see the truth," along their rims. These weren't mere decorations, they were talismans against deception, their polished backs etched with cosmic symbols like the 4 directions or the 12 zodiac animals. When sunlight struck them just right, they projected these patterns onto walls, turning light itself into a canvas for hidden order. Scholars used them in meditation, not to admire their features but to polish the heart mirror, a practice rooted in Taoist philosophy. The goal, to scrub away the dust of desire until the soul's reflection shone as clear as the metal's gleam. The Greeks, too, understood the mirror's double edge. The myth of Narcissus isn't just a cautionary tale about vanity, it's a puzzle about perception. When the beautiful youth fell for his own reflection, he wasn't gazing at water, but at a surface that could never love him back. Ovid's version twists the knife deeper. Narcissus dies not from self-obsession, but from realizing too late that the image he adored was an illusion. The pool's cruel magic, it showed him only what he wanted to see, not who he truly was. What's chilling is how often mirrors appear at the boundary between worlds. In Japanese folklore, Kagami mirrors enshrined at Shinto altars house the Mitama, the spirit essence of deities. Breaking one was taboo not because of superstition, but because it risked freeing forces better left contained. Celtic legends speak of scrying mirrors made from blackened silver, used by druids to communicate with ancestors. Even the Venetian glass mirrors of the Renaissance, despite their scientific precision, carried whispers of alchemy, their mercury-backed surfaces believed to trap fragments of the soul. Modern psychology echoes these ancient intuitions. The mirror test, where animals recognize their reflections, isn't just about intelligence, it's a measure of self-awareness, that elusive spark separating cognition from consciousness. Yet studies show that staring too long at one's reflection can trigger dissociation, as if the brain rebels against the paradox of being both observer and observed. It's no accident that mirror neurons fire both when we act and when we watch others act, proof that the line between self and reflection is thinner than glass. Perhaps the mirror's greatest power lies in its refusal to lie. Unlike water, which flatters with ripples, or polished metal, which softens with patina, a true mirror shows every flaw. The Aztecs knew this when they used obsidian to reveal spiritual blemishes. The Chinese knew it when they equated a clean mirror with a virtuous mind. Today, we might swap bronze for smartphone screens, but the challenge remains unchanged. To look beyond the surface and confront what stares back, not just the face, but the life that shaped it. The next time you catch your reflection, ask yourself, are you seeing an image or an invitation? From spirals to serpents, these ancient symbols form a silent language, one that transcends borders and centuries to speak directly to something deep within us. They aren't relics locked behind museum glass, but living threads woven into the fabric of our modern lives. That Celtic knot on your friend's tattoo. It carries the same message of eternity it whispered to a druid 2,000 years ago. The lotus flower blooming in your neighborhood pond. It's replaying the same drama of resilience that inspired pharaohs and monks alike. These motifs persist because they aren't just decorations. They're mirrors reflecting the unchanging core of the human experience, our hunger for meaning, our awe of nature's cycles, our terror and fascination with the unknown. What's remarkable is how these symbols adapt without losing their essence. The serpent shedding its skin still symbolizes transformation, whether carved into an Aztec temple or inked onto a cancer survivor's wrist. The labyrinth's twisting path remains a metaphor for life's journey, whether traced in medieval cathedral stones or printed on a therapist's stress relief coloring book. Even the internet age hasn't dulled their power. The Ouroboros snake eating its tail resurfaces in recycling logos, while the Tree of Life roots itself in family tree apps and DNA ancestry sites. The symbols endure because they're not bound to any one time or technology. They're vessels, constantly refilled with new interpretations while keeping their ancient wisdom intact. This isn't just about admiring the past, it's about recognizing how these patterns still shape us. When you feel a pang of recognition staring at a mandala's symmetry, or catch yourself doodling spirals during a boring meeting, you're tapping into an inheritance far older than written history. Psychologists call it collective unconscious, artists term it archetype, but whatever the label, the effect is the same. These forms speak to us because they're part of us. The phoenix rising from ashes isn't just a myth, it's the template we follow when rebuilding after personal losses. The mountain summit isn't just a physical peak, it's the symbol we reach for when striving toward any seemingly impossible goal. So the next time you encounter an ancient symbol, whether in a film's costume design, a corporate logo, or the graffiti on a city wall, pause, look beyond the surface and ask what layers it might be hiding. That Viking rune on a motorcycle gang's patch, it once guided sailors through storms. The eye motif on a dollar bill, it descends from Horus' all-seeing gaze. History's symbols are all around us, waiting for those willing to listen to their stories. Which ones speak to you? Drop a comment below. We're all curators of this living museum, adding new chapters to motifs that will likely outlive us all. And if you've enjoyed unraveling these mysteries with me, hit subscribe. The past has countless more stories to tell, and together we'll keep decoding them one symbol at a time.